I am not going to take long on this video because I have a meeting that's coming up in a few minutes. But I want to talk about politicized reality for the moment. Russiagate. Russiagate. So this was something that a lot of us on the left pushed back hard on. This idea that Russia somehow intervened into the election to help Trump get elected. And that still ended up being multiple years within Trump's administration where Trump was basically constrained on some level by this narrative, by the reports, the Mueller report, the stuff that was leaked, one item after the next. The Trump administration was the administration that got across the level and the extent to which intelligence is interwoven into media. And that media basically releases whatever it gets from intelligence because from their standpoint, it gets click, it gets eyes, it gets attention. Intelligence, however, is leaking it for their own reasons, with the media just being useful idiots along for the ride. They don't inspect what they're given, they just drop it out there. And when they're found to be farcical or wrong, no introspection, move forward. If you point out, hey, is it really your job to be stenographers? Well, they would say, well, look, this is what was put out. So you can't necessarily hit us for something when it's the thing that was put out. Well, of course, that's bogus. Their job on some level is to articulate reality to the public in a way that will make sense and will get a contextual view of their world. At least that's what I consider my job to be. But that's just it. Even though that's what is advertised, that is not exactly what comes out. They present things almost as if they were hand in glove with the state. They have guardrails on their thought processes when they are either asking questions or even when they are writing stories. It is very weird. It is very bizarre when you're not necessarily on that wavelength. If you watch other news from other countries, you get a point of view. That point of view, you realize, is just a take on the world. Just like when Joe Biden and Jen Psaki gets out here, they give you a take of the world. Oftentimes, it's dramatically propagandistic. But so are the other governments around the world. It behooves us as people to try to figure out, all right, what's true in this? Why are they giving me a story that leads me to a certain conclusion as opposed to giving a contextual point of view that would give me a better assessment? That's our media. That's what mainstream media does. So when Russiagate came down and these guys were saying Trump in Russia, Trump in Russia, Trump in Russia, TYT, Donald Trump is being controlled by Vladimir Putin as if he was an animatronic robot. And yet, it didn't even entirely make sense. Donald Trump was taking one action after the next that was against Russian interests. The pulling out of one treaty after the next and getting rid of the JCPOA. Now, the Russians didn't necessarily like the JCPOA apparently when it was being initiated, but at the point where it was initiated, then no, they weren't for the United States unilaterally pulling out, or maybe they were for it because it was shooting the United States in the foot. But either way, it was suited Russian interests for Donald Trump to shoot himself in the foot. But from the standpoint of the world order at the time and the belief at the time, no, the Russians were for it. Trump pulls out of it. Venezuela, he attacks Venezuela. Again, this is somewhat of an ally. Attacking Iran, attacking Syria. All of these things were problematic from the standpoint of Russia, and yet the media still castigated Donald Trump as if it was Trump in Russia. Even the sanctions, oh, why hasn't Donald Trump passed sanctions on Russia for interference in the election? Well, what does that mean, though? If Donald Trump passed sanctions on Russia for that, that's basically him saying, I was helped in this race. Meaning he would be repudiating his own win. It would be a president basically saying he did not get in office in his own steam. Donald Trump couldn't pass those sanctions because Donald Trump didn't want to admit something as ludicrous as that. Media doesn't explain that. They just say Donald Trump is working with the Russians. Even the way that the information was leaked in the first place, the P tape, where Donald Trump goes in, he has a conversation, they come out and they leak it to the press. And the moment that they leak it, it makes it look like there's a there to it, even though there was no there to the video. We went 3 years only to find out that there was no there. It's phenomenal. Where there was a there, however, was Ukraine interacting in our elections or intervening and interfering in our elections since 2016. Now, the wild part about this is people who were heavy in the camp of Trump and Russia has somehow tried to scrub this. And mainstream media has even tried to scrub this, acting as if Ukraine didn't interfere with the election. This, just to make clear, is a flat fact. And yet, the Washington Post, in a story that they published, is still pushing that angle as if, oh, nothing to see here, nothing to see here, Ukraine didn't do X or Y. Screw that. It is a flat fact that Ukraine helped Hillary Clinton in that election in 2016 to the detriment of Donald Trump. Does it mean it worked? Clearly, it didn't work, but it did happen. Just establishing that. Washington Post comes out with an article. FBI warned Giuliani Russian disinformation. Now, think back for a moment. You have a situation where Donald Trump wants to pull out of Afghanistan. Lo and behold, here's a leak. Who cares the legitimacy of it? It's just a leak that basically says Russians are paying Taliban to kill Americans. They run with that. And they try to use that to stop Trump from pulling the troops out. It's a reporter getting a leak from some agent. When Biden gets in office, Biden says, yeah, that leak has no validity to it. It was a low level. And they immediately move on. There was no interrogation into why was it leaked to us. Was it leaked for the reason of trying to stop Trump? That doesn't come up. Doesn't come up. It's not engaged, not thought about, nothing. Move forward. So then they say this. FBI warned Giuliani. Okay. But the key point here is this part where it gets down to where they brief Biden, Ron Johnson, and Ron Johnson made the point of saying, look, you have people who are associated with the Democratic Party and reporters, and same thing is true for Republicans, where they would give them stuff to leak, and they would leak it, and they would use it to either castigate Republicans or push the media in a particular direction. What sounds more true? Either Giuliani is working with the Russians, or what I just said about the way they would work and push the media and everything else. That's what's taking place. That's what took place with the Russian story. But media never interrogates or thinks about it in those terms. It is very aggravating. It is very annoying. And when you are basically in this business and you are trying to give context and explanation and everything else, yeah, it's very aggravating when they do that. And yet, that's what takes place. More importantly for this story and for the point of this video is the part where they get into right here. They're talking about Ukraine. And they make this case right here. Johnson said that he's never spoke with Durkak, but he and his staff met with another Ukrainian national, former diplomat Andriy Teleshenko, who pushed the unfounded allegation that it was Ukraine rather than Russia that interfered with the 2016 election. Well, that's Ukraine. I mean, that's Washington Post basically sticking that in there. Unfounded. Was it really unfounded? Right here. USA Today, same thing, pushing the same allegation. No, Ukraine didn't interfere in 2016 election, making Donald Trump president. Again, are you really going to make that argument? I mean, you have a lot of people who are in the Democratic bubble that would still make that argument. Oh, Ukraine didn't have anything to do with it. Let's have a conversation about it. This video is going to be quick, but yeah, let's have a conversation about it. Let's nail down reality for people who want to push that ventilator of Russiagate and changing reality itself in order to kind of push something. Because basically, the courts, the claims against Donald Trump were unfounded. But the claims that the Democratic Party worked with the Ukrainian government to get dirt on Manafort, that is flat fact true. And if the Washington Post is going to put that out there, then the Washington Post is either lying or the Washington Post is incompetent. Welcome to the soapbox. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, if you dig this content, please like, share, and subscribe. You can always support this content through PayPal or Patreon. This content is brought to you by you, and I appreciate you allowing me to do it. Like I said, video is not going to be long. So, right here, here's another case that they were saying. Right here. Ukraine didn't interfere in 2016 election, Trump official testified. Again, this is a Russiagate thing. Ukraine, 1,000% interfered in the election. Let's start here for the moment. Let's start with this. Listen to what Biden says here. Biden is basically bragging on a stage. I know you've seen this video, but what is he bragging about? Think about the context for a moment. The Ukrainian government is a fledgling government. The United States helped that government foment a revolution. At the point where these guys have split in some way, they are on a lifeline. They are desperate for money. They are involved in a conflict with the other part of the Ukraine and Russian troops helping. And Biden is basically saying, I want you to get rid of the prosecutor. Now, his son, at this point, $3 million from the company? And Biden is saying that these two, he never talked. Despite the fact he's like the viceroy in the Ukraine, he never talked. It's 1,000% believed that Hillary Clinton was going to win. You're the Ukrainian government. The DNC, same party with Hillary, is asking you for information in a clandestine way to attack Trump and to get the media to talk about Trump and to get the Congress potentially to talk about Trump. And you assume that Clinton is going to win that race. What do? What you do is what the Ukraine did, which was release information on Manafort. But to show you how desperate these guys were, how much power Biden and the Democratic Party basically had in the Ukraine after this revolution, look at this. Coup, I should say.
I remember going over convincing our team, or others too, convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a bitch. Got fired. And
now, Biden is sitting up here bragging about this. Now, if Trump would have did something like that, he basically intervened in order to get somebody fired from the state. Think about that. Somebody comes in and says, look, I need you to fire that guy, or you're not getting money from us. That's basically what he's bragging about. The prosecutor gets fired. But think about the station and the position that the United States had in Ukraine at the time. All powerful. So they need information. They want to stop and ding Trump. Ukraine provides it. Now these guys are saying it's not true. The Washington Post is basically saying it's not true. This is Politico. Ukrainian efforts to sabotage Trump backfire. Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a Trump top aide in corruption and suggesting that they were investigating the matter only to back away after the election. And they helped Clinton allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors. A political investigation has found. A Ukrainian-American operative who was consulting the Democratic National Committee met with top Ukrainian officials in the embassy in Washington in an effort to expose ties between Trump, top campaign aide Manafort, and Russia, according to people with direct knowledge of the situation. Yes, that's true. How about this one? Here's another one. More information. Ukrainian embassy confirms DNC contractor solicited dirt in 2016. So wait a minute. So in one case, Politico is explaining it. The Ukrainian embassy confirmed it. Confirmed it. The Ukraine court rules Manafort disclosure cause meddling in a U.S. election. So let me get this straight. The Washington Post is basically arguing, okay, this didn't happen. USA Today, this didn't happen. Several Russiagators, this didn't happen. And yet, Politico notes it. You know the people who are involved, talking about Chalupa, who's interacting with the embassy. The embassy confirms that this took place. Ukrainian courts confirm this took place. And don't even take all of their words for it. Here's Chalupa, in her own words. Ali Chalupa, Luis Miranda, a lot more coming down the pipe. I spoke to the delegation of 68 investigative journalists from Ukraine last Wednesday at the Liberty of Congress, the Open World Society's forum. They put me on the program to speak specifically about Paul Manafort, and I invited Michael Isikoff, who I've been working with for the past few weeks, and we connected with him on the Ukrainians. More offline tomorrow, since there is a big Trump component you and Lauren need to be aware of that will hit in the next few weeks, something I've been working on should you be aware of. Since I started digging into Manafort, these messages have been a daily occurrence on my Yahoo despite changing my password often. DNC operative going to the embassy, working with the press, and just so happened, Ukraine releases the documents on Manafort. And also keep in mind the DNC operative who's interacting with the Ukrainian embassy. Well, again, Ukraine is basically under a viceroyship of the Democratic Party with a Joe Biden. They were in a submissive position, releasing information to ding a political opponent by all sense of objective reality. Ukraine did interfere in the 2016 election. And for the Washington Post to push this subtly by, as if nobody is going to notice that, that's amazing. Unfounded allegations. Unfounded allegations. That's the way Washington Post described this. Unfounded allegations. Washington Post needs to issue a correction immediately. It's not an unfounded allegation. It is a flat fact reality that Ukraine interfered in the Hillary Clinton election with Trump. They just did it poorly, and Hillary still lost either way. And I'll tell you this, if Hillary Clinton did win, there would have been none of those investigations that took place that went after Donald Trump, saying that he was working and colluding, despite the fact that the DNC clearly was colluding with the Ukrainian government to win that election. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all. And make sure you subscribe, guys. YouTube has been doing crazy stuff with the account. They've been cutting down the members and everything else. So definitely make sure you subscribe, share the video. It definitely support on PayPal or Patreon if you have the ability to do so.